Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the third interview on the channel. I am here with one of the best level designers on LittleBigPlanet, Stephen Belcher. Everyone knows you by Steve Big Guns, so this is Steve Big Guns, guys, if you don't know him. I just gotta say, I really got into LittleBigPlanet during LittleBigPlanet 2, and most people nowadays know you from the levels you designed for LBP 2 and LBP 3. But yeah, go ahead and tell us a bit about yourself.
Oh yeah, I kind of started making stuff in LBP 1, and then that was when I actually got hired to work at Sumo on the LBP 3 game. It's kind of started before then, and then I kind of made stuff on the transition in LBP 2, which then, yeah, that's kind of, I guess a lot of the stuff I kind of made in 1 was what got me into that job initially, and then 2 was kind of things, I guess it's like ideas and stuff that kind of wanted to see in the next one. And then we kind of continued on working on that. That's why a lot of stuff I made was like early on in LBP 2 and not really, as soon as I started kind of working at Sumo, obviously working on the other projects, so in less time actually making stuff, and you don't want to make anything that you're currently working on since all your ideas are going into that game. Yeah, and then going on to LBP 3, kind of started there. I think that was before LBP 2 was actually even released. I think that was like the beta. So we moved to the job there in Sheffield before then, and then started working with other people from the actual community. So there was like 4 of us initially that got hired. So we all went down to the interview, kind of meet it up, and then we started working on the project, which started off, it wasn't even an LBP game, an LBP sequel game. It was LBP kind of DLC spin-off type. It's kind of a full release, but not a single kind of iteration of the game. It's basically like I think it was Star Wars, but the idea of the game was Star Wars with kind of particle fluids. So that's kind of the big gameplay addition to it, was this kind of 2D particle fluids, whereas things like Pixel Jump Shooter and games like that, which is kind of using similar ideas. But we kind of realized that we didn't have the actual, well, Sony didn't look into the kind of licensing, I don't think, for the Star Wars itself. So it's the cost of actually getting the license was just not really possible to do. Right. So it's, yeah, I think it's like some stupid amount where, yeah, it was just easier just to do another iteration of the game. So we kind of focused all our efforts on that. And I think some issues with the actual particle fluids themselves was kind of performance issues, since LBP, I don't know if, you probably made stuff within the engine itself, and you get issues with, even the kind of water additions and DLC in the first game is kind of, the performance was dying. So it's just adding that on top was quite a lot. So we just focused on what we can do within the next one, and then starting off working right at the beginning. Initially, I guess it ended up being LBP 3, which was, the new characters like Oddsock, Toggle, and kind of Swoop. Where initially the focus was kind of making the kind of adventure. That's kind of the initial idea, was like a big adventure game. So yeah, and it's kind of working on that, worked on things like the characters from it. Like a lot of the ideas of things I would want to see within a game. So it's like, as I'm a kind of player of the game, I came from like making stuff in the community. Same with a lot of people who were hired. We had like a lot of ideas and things we wanted to see within the game. So it's like, I guess that's kind of one of the best things when you actually hire people who are into the game and know what they want to see. There's always obviously things like scope and things like that. Obviously, you want things that are going to take too much time or be too complicated to actually achieve. But like a lot of things we wanted to see, we kind of just prototyped them within LBP2 itself, and then a lot of them kind of ended up coming through into the actual game itself. Things like, I think I did do some prototypes, like some of the ideas of things like toggle and stuff. I kind of made a level in LBP2, which is kind of similar, kind of shifting the shapes from like one character size to another, and things like pushing like the 3D, like kind of the layer stuff that you could do in LBP2, and finally kind of add the in-out movers to kind of hack some stuff, and like hacking the cameras and stuff to kind of, so we kind of done the addition of adding the kind of additional layers, which initially was, I think it's something like 30, something like 32 or something like that, I can't remember, but then it ended up going down to like 16, partially because like performance, and then the rest was, I think it's just kind of, yeah, it's just actually prototyping within it. There wasn't a huge amount of use for having additional layers for the gameplay. Like you need a back layer, kind of front layer, and then just kind of switching between the two. And when you go back, it's just, yeah, it's just created like performance issues, and there's not really a massive amount of gameplay that you actually got from it. So limited that down. And yeah, that's kind of a lot of things were kind of prototyped into, like things like velocipores, things like that early on. So it's, yes, we had the power from the existing game to be able to prototype things we would actually want, which was, yeah, quite nice. We're not kind of sitting around and having ideas and not being able to communicate them well, which is when you're making a game, like the easier it is to communicate what you want, the kind of the better it is, like the better the game will kind of end up being. And yeah, do you want to know any more about what I'm currently doing, or?
Yeah, sure thing.
Yeah. So yeah, after that, it's I think after the LBP 3 actually released. So I kind of worked on the DLC, but then I kind of went to Media Molecule itself. So I went from Sumo to Media Molecule, which was kind of working on their secret project that was Dreams. So I kind of started off on that kind of early on, and yeah, and then kind of shipped that, which took about 8 years. And yeah, still working at Media Molecule at the moment. And I think that game, yeah, it's kind of similar to LBP. It's kind of, it allowed you to do similar things, just slightly more complicated, but what you could achieve was kind of a lot more advanced. It allowed you to, rather than just making kind of levels, it allowed you to make games you would want, but you'd have to really understand the tools to be able to achieve them. That's kind of the same with any engine, like you have to understand the tools to be able to make what you want. And I find that even today, just like prototyping stuff, it's just much faster than, say, Unreal or something. You can just get what you want, or it's got limitations in like memory and stuff. You can still get really good results if you kind of understand the tool. And yeah, that's pretty much it, up to date.
Yeah. So on the track of the prototyping levels and being able to make these crazy cool creations, because I know you've made tons of them, one thing that I think a lot of people want to know is, how did you go from making, remember those costume tutorials in LittleBigPlanet 1 that you would make to help people show you, to show them how you would make your costume by putting stickers on those cardboard cutouts and then posting them on the community? How did you go from that to building these insane levels in LittleBigPlanet 2? Where was that jump?
I think it's like, mostly when I got the game, I bought the game mostly just for like, based on the kind of, I guess I kind of like the visuals on it. That kind of attracted me first, like it's the first realistic rendering one, and kind of the physics on it was kind of interesting. So I kind of played around with the physics initially, because I like games like Half-Life and just seeing what you can do with that. But I didn't really make any levels. I just started making, I'm going to make something. So I thought, I can make costumes. Like the level design of actually making stuff with the physics like seemed to be quite, I don't know, you never made anything before, and it's like, I just make something. And then I kind of got familiar with the tools of just making costumes, and I kind of found it kind of fun just to make something. Like, can I make Mario in the game? Can I make this character? And it's kind of just fun to share them. And I just shared them. People seem to like them. So I had a lot of people kind of playing the stuff already. So I just thought, the first level I made was, I just wanted to make something that I kind of enjoyed and felt kind of familiar. So I kind of made, the first level I made was like a Mario level, just because it's like similar to like making costumes. I was making like things like characters and props and stuff that was in that kind of world. And then I just combined that with kind of level design, and a lot of stuff initially was just like what I find fun in a game is kind of, and the kind of limitations of what you can make within it. I just ended up kind of going through and making a kind of adventure where you was just going from one area to another, and then I kind of learned a lot about like level design from just experimenting really, and a lot of it was obviously playing other people's stuff as well, and just kind of like that element and taking things together and just compiling them of what you think works within a single level. And that's kind of, I guess when you start off, like just make something kind of familiar, kind of, it's quite easy to do and just add your own kind of gameplay twist to it. And then the next thing I made was kind of, I wanted to make something more original. So I kind of made this kind of lab-based theme where it's kind of digitized reality, where the idea is kind of I want to like feel like you're going into like the VR thing, and then at the end you're kind of trapped within the kind of game itself. So I kind of made like a fake port and stuff. But I kind of had those ideas, and then just making kind of interesting gameplay between it. But the gameplay wasn't really massively original in that one. Kind of it was just making things that were fun and kind of motifs you found fun. And then I kind of started moving on to like more interesting things where it's like, I think I made a bunch of levels which were like these Sky Factory levels, which were kind of jumping around and more motif based, where it's actually started to get into more flow of gameplay. And there's more of kind of a hook of what you're actually doing in terms of like the gameplay related to it. And then, yeah, I kind of made different things like that and some like mini games and stuff in LBP1. And then when LBP2 came along, I kind of started focusing more on actually having a hook in your level. So it's like more strong focus, less on like initial thing, which making like costumes and art. It's like just focusing on pure gameplay. Because I found like a lot of levels that focus pure on gameplay, even if they look bad, they had an interesting idea, and it's like you had fun playing it, and you know that's kind of what I was kind of trying to get within the level, and like less focus on like visuals and things like that, and just pure design. And then I found it's just when you have that, you have a fun idea and a good, I guess when you have the initial idea, it allows you to kind of, the level kind of facilitates that idea. So it's like you don't really have to even try. You have this idea, and the motifs kind of just come off that idea without trying really. It's just the best way I found to kind of design is just what idea you have kind of limits what kind of level you have. So it's just, I find that current designs I do is generally based on coming up with an initial kind of set of ideas that work, and just if they don't allow you to kind of build a lot of ideas from that, I just kind of throw them away. And that's pretty much, yes, kind of how I've got into it, kind of going from like costumes and kind of more art focused, I guess, and then just still trying to make it kind of look nice and have interesting effects and stuff, but also kind of combine it with like interesting gameplay that's kind of you'd want to see in a game. It's like when you share it with people, it's more like rather than you just making a level to, just to publish, you kind of have an idea and you just want to share it just because it's like something you would find fun. So it's like maybe other people would find fun as well. And it's like just get their reaction from it and see how they actually find it playing it. And it's kind of why I wanted to make that like 3D first person game. It's like I haven't seen anything like this done yet. So it's just even though it's quite janky, just like see how, see what people think. Maybe they find it interesting just seeing it as well. So.
Right. Sorry. Right. And I think the title of that first person shooter was a Massive Epic Raging Destruction 3D FPS trailer. Quite a title, by the way. And you already explained kind of the reason behind it, but this is something that A wanted to know. How long did it take you to make that level?
Time, I'm not too sure. I think it was pretty quick, actually. It's like, I think initially I made like the first person character, and then it's, the actual objects, like I just made a bunch of assets so I could actually build stuff with, which wasn't actually a lot of effort. It's basically made out of decorations and stuff. So I think it's maybe about 2 weeks, maybe, I don't know. I think it's like about a couple of weeks, maybe even. It's like, Yeah, I think most of it was like some visual polish over the top, but the actual level, as soon as I got like the level functioning and kind of working around in the camera and stuff, and figuring out like the character itself, like making that kind of feel good, it's kind of getting the kind of what I said, like, getting the basics in place first, and everything else was pretty simple. I kind of just used the same level structure. I had to like level link them because I kept them running out of space, so you'd like get to the bounds of the level. But yeah, it's pretty quick. I kind of reused a lot of like scenery and assets and things.
Yeah, yeah. And because you've worked on many amazing things, and that's definitely one of them. Out of all the things you've worked on, what would you say you're most proud of?
What do you mean? Like stuff I've made?
Like in terms of levels, just generally, levels you've made, anything you've made in the game.
Okay, like even in community, or is it like the WP3 stuff or just the community stuff?
Yeah, it can involve that too. Sure.
Yeah, probably. I guess from the community things. Yeah, probably. I like that little. I guess like some things I liked is like even the Mario game, the first one, because it's like the first level I made. It's always good to look back on it, and like that's the thing that got you into like level design and making games, and what you found fun in making games, I guess. So that's always the thing. Like sometimes you kind of lose what's actually fun in it. Just trying to make a game, it gets kind of tedious. Where it's kind of reminds you why you kind of started making them. And also, I like in LBP2, like the Little Big Me level. It's kind of like Toggle, but it's like I just like the mechanic itself. It's quite fun, and even though it's like kind of like just using it in a race level, I had kind of replayability, and some of the motifs were quite unique. Like I haven't really seen any game that had that in, well, at that point anyway. And I'm not too sure on I guess one thing from like the LBP3 itself was maybe I kind of like I've done like a lot of like 2D platform levels and things, and lots of ideas like levels trying to do some like 3D things, which I kind of found interesting. So we kind of had tools where we was trying to make 3D techniques to make it look like things were kind of, falling down and flapping and falling into the screen. But kind of like the thing that combined them all together, which was the kind of, I can't remember what it's called, it's the Yeti level, the kind of top-down one, where it's kind of trying to take all the tools and kind of push them to a limit to make a level that, I guess some things like the level itself, like got to a certain point and we had to add tweaks and things to actually allow it, which was quite nice, since having that level in the game allowed us to make, or just modify the tools slightly to allow other people to make those types of levels. But I kind of like that it showcased like what you could actually do with the tools if you really pushed them. Like it had the idea of things like ramps and stuff that top down, and things that would kind of, doors and stuff that kind of flap open and different things like that. And yeah, that's the kind of, I guess, in terms of like the working on the actual LBP game itself in the retail one, that's kind of the most interesting thing. And I guess when I made a community level afterwards as well, I made some kind of, I don't know if anyone's seen it, it's kind of like a mini game where it's kind of just jumping lasers, but I kind of like that idea because it's taking a slightly different perspective where the camera isn't kind of top down, it's more just a standard camera, but it's like changing the controls a different way. And it's kind of what LBP would be like in kind of proper 3D, where you still had the emotes and stuff, so you could still like wave your arms, but kind of depending on where you're facing, and it's actually given like proper 3D navigation. So that's kind of the slightly different handling and techniques used, and yeah, so that's kind of, I think that's like one of the most interesting things in that, just to show it's possible and just to try it. I kind of wanted to make that level to see, can it actually be done and can it actually feel good at the same time. I kind of like the gameplay of the level as well, so it's just a mini game. So I kind of throw like levels that kind of have a lot of replayability in them, so you can play it yourself and find when I make levels that are just A to B, you can make them kind of, it's fun to kind of play once if you're kind of the player. But if you're actually making the level, you've played that level 1,000 times, so when you're making it and testing it, by the time you get to the end, you don't really even find it enjoyable. But if you're making something that has some kind of element of like replayability, you find it just enjoyable to play over and over again and test while you're making it. Yeah, that's pretty much all of them that I can think of.
Yeah. So in terms of designing levels on the job, what kind of a difference is there between doing that and making levels for fun, would you say?
Yeah, when you're making them for fun, you don't have any deadlines at all. So you can just, even if you find the idea and you're not quite sure about it, you can come back to it later and you can just move on to other things in between, or two at a time. But yeah, when you're making them at work, you kind of have to keep to a certain deadline. So you kind of just do the motifs and then you do the levels, and also you have to obviously worry about performance and stuff. But yeah, so I find it more creative and fun just to make things yourself when you have like no limitations, like the freedom to do exactly what you want. It doesn't have to relate to any kind of theme or part of the game at all. Well, a lot of mini games things don't, but when you're doing like a level and stuff, you may have an idea for a level, but it just doesn't fit into the game, so you can't really, it doesn't fit anywhere, so you go on to something else, or you're just taking like part of a level from something else that's already someone else's started level, where sometimes it's fun to do, but yeah, it's when you have full control over what you're doing. It's just you're kind of making it for yourself. You've got no limitations. Yeah, it's kind of the fun of making games. I find probably, I don't know, so working at any studio, you're always gonna be kind of, there's always going to be compromises. You're never going to be able to do exactly what you want. Where when you can do what you want, it's just more kind of enjoyable to do. Yeah, I think that's pretty much kind of it. There's also a lot of things such as like, yeah, it's just the tedious part of it as well. Just having to like bug fix and things, like when you're actually working on a project that's like part of work. So if it gets overly complicated, it's like you have to understand how to be able to fix it. If you get these bugs there, and other people have to kind of work on it as well sometimes. So it's like you have to set it up in a slightly different way. You can't be as messy. Where if you're making stuff yourself, you don't really have to worry about that. So you can just spend more of your effort kind of being creative rather than having to worry about setting things up in a certain way, which I find just ends up kind of achieving better results that you kind of like and you find more enjoyable to play as a result.
Right. And in terms of working on the game, right, because you've made all these creations, and it got the attention of Media Molecule and Sumo. Being in the community for a long time, did you ever, for example, receive this is kind of a twofold question. Did you ever receive the crown? And did you happen to get any rare pins in the game?
Yeah, I think like when I went to like we had like game jams and stuff that we went to. I think like Spaff just ended up giving me a crown anyway. There's a crown. So, but yeah, I think a lot of the crown stuff was you had to do like, I don't know, certain different things you've done, like competitions and stuff, and I don't think I ever got one that way, I don't think. So it's like, that's kind of how I got it. I just went to, I think it's like seeing him now. He just gave me a crown just randomly when I was just at, like seeing him in person there. Then it just turned up. So, and yeah, what was the other question? Sorry, I think
did you get any rare pins in the game as well, being a developer technically?
I'm not too sure on rare pins. I'm not too sure when I was actually working on it. I think you get a pin, maybe it's like a developer pin or something. I can't remember. I remember getting one when it's like, I think it's like high five Alex Evans or something. Where it's like everyone was just high fiving him, like when we set all that kind of meet up just to get that pin. That's like one I definitely remember. But I'm not too sure on like developer ones. I think there was some that kind of went on, but I think it's like LBP3 related, but I can't remember what they were.
So you actually high-fived Alex Evans?
Yeah. It's like I think that was that. Maybe it's like the first game jam that we went to. Like that was like, I'm sure it's like maybe that's like LBP1 or something. But yeah, everyone's just like high-fiving him. There's like a pin related to it, so it's like the only way you can get it is if you high-five him.
That's so cool. Yeah, I remember seeing that pin around and I'm like, oh, I've got to do this one day. High five Alex Evans.
I have to go on and just like high five.
Right, right. Oh, that's so cool. And so going on that track, right? I mean, working at Media Molecule and Sumo, you must have met and you probably are still meeting lots of great people. And what I want to know, and probably what a lot of people want to know, is what made you decide to work at, again, this is twofold, Media Molecule and Sumo Digital, right? Like, why didn't you decide to just kind of go on an opposite track and just continue building levels in the community and just being a regular community creator? What made you, draw yourself to the call of those studios?
First of all, I think like Sumo was, I think that's just like, I've had an email that I received as kind of working on, I think initially it started working on, it's like a music video. I think that was the first one. It's like this N-Dubs music video. So it's like, I kind of got paid for that. So it's, oh yeah, I'll just do that anyway. It's like I'm making stuff at home. And then it was like, I think that was, the next one was like a TV advert or something where it's like themed about places in the world or something. I just made like this kind of toy top-down racer looking thing. And then there was like a project also, which was, I think it's like Hansel and Gretel Bot or something, where like just like working on that. Like it's more of a kind of community level kind of, but as like they kind of brought, I think like brought a bunch of community people to like make a kind of sequence of levels that felt like a kind of story mode with a kind of theme and things. And after that, kind of had a job offer to work on something like LBP related, but at Sumo. And yeah, at the time I wasn't really, I think it's like in between doing things. Like I kind of just finished university and yeah, also working like just, I was in Cornwall as well, which is like, there's no great jobs in Cornwall. So it's, you don't get well, it's like, unless you're doing things like builders or working, it's like there's nothing which is great that you're going to get great pay. So it's like a kind of job opportunity to kind of work in kind of the games industry, which is something that I kind of felt that was fun to do by myself, and kind of unsure, like, how going from that, making stuff yourself and then working at like a game studio was going to be. But I kind of went to the job interview and kind of thought, yeah, just go for it, try it out. And then it seemed like what we're doing is pretty much what we're doing anyway. But then rather than just having the existing tools, we could actually say what kind of tools we would want for them, or kind of prototype stuff of things we would want to see in the game. So it's kind of a bit more interesting and empowering to make things within that. So yeah, I guess that's kind of the reasons, like having a job that you actually found fun to do in your spare time as a hobby, but then you spend all your time doing it. It's like, it seemed like a good idea. But yeah, it's like, I guess it's like, sometimes it depends on what project you're working as well. Sometimes it can, like, you're doing a thing you normally like, but you're not working on something you'd want to work on at a time, which kind of, I guess sometimes when you're working on a job and then you do the thing in your spare time, you kind of have more motivation, and yeah, kind of, it's kind of, yes, like one thing, it kind of, yes, I guess the thing that you love, like when it becomes your job, sometimes like people say it, like, it can go the other way, but it's like keeping or just finding what you find fun in it all the time, and you kind of focusing on that, even if you're not working on, your own thing. Like I said previously, it's always more enjoyable to work on your own thing, so not the kind of compromises that you would normally make. And I guess it's less throwaway work as well when you're working on a project, you get work kind of thrown away. So kind of, yeah, once I started there, I just moved on to Media Molecule because I kind of felt like the LBP, I was kind of working on DLC and stuff, which it felt like there's a kind of chance to work on something similar but kind of different, which kind of felt interesting again, to kind of have an opportunity to kind of be able to kind of shape that a bit in a similar way but different. So it's, I think LBP, when you go from like LBP, it's kind of a transitional point where it's kind of more DLC, where it's smaller changes, but it's kind of found it fun to have these kind of opportunities to kind of influence the game a bit more of how it's going to actually be in the kind of final release.
Right. And about that, in terms of working on the LittleBigPlanet games, because you've been around since LBP 1, and then you went to 2, and then to 3. Again, this is sort of a threefold question, and it's about favorites, so it's a bit subjective. So, and it's something that I think a few people in the community would like to know, just because it's kind of out there. But what would you say is your favorite LittleBigPlanet game in the entire franchise? What is your favorite level? And what is your favorite DLC?
Yeah. I think game... Yeah, it's a tricky one. It depends, I still find, the first one probably, honest. I think it's, because it's kind of quite honest about, I guess, use of physics and how it's kind of made. You had all the tags and stuff in the world. I don't find the gameplay as good as the others. I still I think that's because it actually got me into it. I kind of as a game that actually, stands out as one that you hold above the others. I kind of think that's the complexity of some of the contraptions of actually having to build it all with joints and stuff. It kind of feels like it's, I don't know, because games you can just script anything you want to kind of work. It had to be built in a certain way, and it kind of, LBP2 kind of used the tools, and they had kind of more visual scripting, which made it a bit easier. But I guess in terms of the kind of game itself is kind of a solid package of kind of being a physics sandbox, and what LBP is about is kind of a physical game. I guess you have games the kind of when you go to Mario and Twitchy, where LBP is the controls weren't comparable to Mario. They're a bit janky, but it's different because it was a physics-based game, and I like that everything was kind of felt like physical and contraptions, and they could break and fall apart. And the other games I found the gameplay in the other games were better, but the game as a whole kind of felt, it kind of works better from LBP 1. But in terms of gameplay as a game, I think unless I didn't really play much of the Vita one, or people were working on it. I kind of felt Vita maybe had the best gameplay out of them, unless not really. Yeah, can't really talk about LBP 3. Kind of worked on it. I think when I work on it, I don't like the levels I made. When I want to play, it's it's better to kind of talk about other games, but they didn't work on. Don't see all the issues in them, but kind of I didn't really play the entirety of the LBP Vita because I didn't have a Vita to play it on. But I played it while being at work. So a lot of people were kind of working on the LBP Vita while I was making the LBP 3 stuff. So there's a few people kind of helping out in Tarsier, and they go back and forth. So I kind of played the level design. It's very similar. I had the same kind of power-ups and stuff, but I found the level design was more solid and kind of considered than LBP 2 itself. And in terms of levels, I'm not too sure. I guess the level I played most out of any of them was the Tower of Whoop, just because it's a combo game, and it's just fun. But sometimes I just the levels that I kind of play the most because they have replayability. The kind of, it's hard to know in terms of levels themselves, just because you need to be kind of the actual story levels that weren't kind of side off levels. Still I always remember from LBP 1 things always the mines level. That's kind of what I kind of try to incorporate that kind of fun feeling into a lot of the early levels I made. And also something about Magician's Palace as well, just the visual at the end when it swapped over and kind of changed. That's clever. It's incredibly simple, it's just stickers and dissolve. It's when you see it, that's kind of the things that kind of inspired me to kind of make stuff. It's kind of cool moments that you kind of see in it, and the kind of fun, flowing gameplay. But and I guess a lot of the LBP 2 stuff, things any level that generally had the grapple hooks, but that's kind of why I like Tower of Whoop the most, because that's kind of incorporated those kind of gameplay elements, but in a replayable way that's kind of just fun to play over and over again. And I think when we had that level at work, I think everyone was playing. I can't remember, but yeah, I think so. I think that everyone was trying to just beat each other's scores and stuff. So long ago. Yeah, DLC. I think the best DLC. I can't really think the DLC. Like, I actually liked one. Like some of the elements within it. I think it was like an LBP DLC that I kind of like playing just because it's had like. I think I made a level for it, but I think it's just like seeing all the other people's levels that they made, which was kind of they seem to work really well. Like I think it's was it like Journey Home or something? I can't remember. I think that was like the first DLC in LBP3 that I think there was like a really cool level with I think it's like the wedding theme that had kind of toggle in it. That's kind of fun. So you had kind of roller coaster sections that I think like Ricky made that where it's like just seeing them and I think that's like I think it's like Jack and Ricky ended up working on that quite a lot. But just seeing the kind of fluid gameplay of it and kind of pushing the kind of current existing character, but just in a slightly different way that wasn't included in the game, I kind of felt it's kind of cool. And there's like a lot of reuse of like characters like in different ways that we didn't do in the game, which I kind of felt just seeing through it. So I didn't really see like the finished result. I kind of left before it kind of made the level I made and then kind of finished. And it's just nice seeing everyone's work, kind of final result of it and kind of how it ended up. Yeah, not too sure on any other DLC. It's like, I think a lot of the DLC actually ended up getting just for the actual stickers and the decorations themselves, like the move pack itself. Like I didn't have a move controller, but I bought the DLC. I think a lot of people did. I remember like everyone that I knew, I haven't got a move, but I just bought the DLC. I can't play the levels.
Right, I did the same thing. Yeah. Came with the special edition disc, I think. It was the move pack. Came with the disc, but I didn't get a move. I'm like, I want to play these levels, but I barely get through the intro.
Yeah, that's kind of. I think I played like one of them at one point while we had a move in it quickly, but I never got to play through the entire campaign to know what it's actually like.
Right. And going on kind of, this is more of a kind of a somber topic, but in terms of missed opportunities and things like that, we see and we have seen that the LittleBigPlanet community has gone through the server shutdown, and it's affected a lot of people, and I know it's affected me especially, but I want to know, what do you think about the shutdown? How did it affect you? How do you see LittleBigPlanet moving forward?
Yeah, it's kind of just felt like it was nice, even though I kind of moved on to like a different studio, and it's like it was nice to see people like still enjoying it and being able to just, if you want, you can actually go back and you can like, you can play stuff. And I think it's just because it's got shut down before you even had a chance to like, save stuff that you had. Like, so I had everything like saved on the actual server itself. I think there is a server in like the emulated version, but you have to like have a PC and get the emulator and things like that, where it's like, it's nice to be able to just like back stuff up and be able to kind of play it and kind of remind yourself of like, when you play through a level, you kind of remind yourself, so you kind of forget after a while, like when you're actually building it, and kind of it reminds you like of the kind of thought processes you used to have, like making stuff, and it's quite nice and it's nice to like be able to go back and play just other people's stuff that you can't, you remember playing it. Just even though I never really played it much, I kind of occasionally went back just to play it, just to see what they're like, and where it's just kind of felt like the game was still alive, even though it's like, I don't know how many people are still playing the game, but it's kind of felt like it's still going. But as soon as it kind of got shut down, it kind of felt like that's just like the kind of complete end, since that's like the last way you can still, or the last possible way you can still play online and still play your old levels from like LBP2 or LBP1, even though they're kind of, some may not working ones yet. But yeah, it's kind of, I don't know, I'm not too sure on like what the future is on it. So I think like the last one was it Sackboy Adventure, which was kind of, I guess it kind of moved away from like what LBP initially was, like the 2D physics kind of sandbox, and trying to be kind of, I guess, more kind of emergent gameplay where it's kind of physics all interacts with each other, and there's a bit of jankiness as a result. Like the character can be a bit twitchy and get flung around and explode. But that's kind of, I guess, the point of the kind of LBP game itself. It's kind of like when you play Helldivers and something comes down and you end up getting flung across the level. It's kind of funny. And it's kind of going towards that and more of like the Mario thing. It's, I guess, yes, kind of felt like the last LBP game was like the kind of, LBP free of the kind of proper physics-based one. And that's kind of, I don't know what the future will be, or whether there'll be more LBP related games, but I guess that's up to Sony now. But a lot of people have kind of moved on from the studio, like obviously Sumo, kind of what they're working on, and like Media Molecule is kind of a lot of people that kind of worked on the initial games, like LBP 1 and 2 have kind of moved from like the studio. So it's like even if there is a new game that's kind of made, it'll be different people kind of making it, so it'll have a slightly different feeling, or the ideas and the kind of the thought processes that went into making the initial ones will be different, so it won't kind of end up the same. It almost feels like a different studio making it at that point, same as like, MM made 1 and 2 and Sumo made 3, and kind of Tarsier made Vita version, and like even the spin-offs like karting and stuff, they're all kind of made by different studios, so they all kind of felt different, and the kind of, especially the karting one, the tool set was completely different because it's obviously 3D. Yeah, it's like hard to know like where it will go, and it seems like just like a lot of stuff's been like, Sony especially seems to be like more focused on, like, it used to be like their kind of main avatar, like they had a lot of it in their kind of branding, the advertising of PlayStation always had Sackboy on it and kind of the characters related to that, and now it's kind of more towards like Astro Bot, and just whether it continues on, whether they kind of change the focus. But it'd be nice to see something related to it, or just kind of, at this point you'd have to do almost like a reboot where it's like you take the kind of, I don't know what LBP initially was, and just like reimagine it, something kind of modern day, taking you as LBP 1, the complete physical world, and seeing how far you can push that with like today's standard, which would be interesting to see, but I don't know if it'll ever happen.
I mean, yeah, hopefully. A lot of people, including myself, are kind of hoping a little bit, maybe a bit of copium for a new LittleBigPlanet game or something similar. Like you said, maybe it's, I know David Dino mentioned kind of almost a crossover between LittleBigPlanet and Sackboy Big Adventure, kind of that 3D idea, but still being able to create things in a sandbox environment and stuff like that. Now, what's really cool is for the channel, past few months we just wrapped up development on a private server for the channel, so we're actually able to play levels. We have all, believe it or not, we have all 10 million levels archived, and we've done like some live streams just playing people's levels and enjoying it. So it's great that there's still some life left in the community. And I wanted to ask you, do you still watch any LittleBigPlanet related stuff on YouTube? Are you still interested in it, or have you kind of moved on to different titles?
Yeah, occasionally, like I see some stuff, but not very often. I think like the last stuff I've seen was like kind of retrospectives on it, and kind of what people like want to see. Or I think I've seen some other things which were like the what's it called? Is it like Restitched game? I think that's like some videos like related to that, and like that's like the most similar games like LBP that's coming out in the future, since it takes. I think initially it did look like LBP, and they kind of reskinned it as a kind of bear-looking character. But yeah, I kind of see bits and pieces, but not really too often. I guess it's like most of the time I don't watch too many games-related stuff anyway. But there's not a huge amount of games coming out, but I think I see like some stuff over and again, and kind of have some like subscription to some like kind of LBP related stuff. I think it's like, what's it called? It's like one of the friends initially that I think it started off with like a video I made, which was like the the FPS game. I think that was his first ever video. It's like Epic LBP Time or Fun Time or something. I can't remember the name.
Oh, yep.
Yeah, that one occasionally, because I had like a subscription to that one, so occasionally like stuff pops up on that. I can check it out.
Yeah. Have you ever seen our channel pop up randomly? Anything you remember at all?
Not too sure. I may have seen some stuff. Normally, I just click on it and go, that's cool. I'm not too sure. Yeah, it's like I've been watching like various like, I think especially since like get people's thoughts like when the servers got shut down, like seeing what actually people think about it and what their kind of hopes are going forward. Like whether that. Some people thought it's like, there's always a kind of push, hopefully it will come back. Yeah, so I don't think it's coming back.
Right. And so, like, in terms of like watching games, you said you don't really do a whole lot of that anymore, but I mean, we can probably say, I would assume, right, since you work on games, that you are, of course, a gamer. And going on that track, this is more of a personal question from A. Do you ever remember playing with A on Call of Duty? And is he good?
What do you mean A?
So the other guy on the channel.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, deeper voice.
Oh, A, yeah. I thought you just. I just when you said A, I just said the letter A. Yeah, I think so. It's like, I never really take too much notice when I'm playing Call of Duty. Other people's stats, it's like, generally it's like, I think, everyone's kind of I played with is like, we always end up winning. So it's, I find, well, the newest one, I find I end up losing. I end up finding everyone I play with ends up doing better than me for some reason. I think they changed the time to kill on it, so it's...
Right.
It's really tricky when you go from one to another, and then suddenly you have to unload an entire clip onto someone, and it kills them, and then someone else just comes and kills you from behind or something. Where I found the other one was just much more balanced. So I kind of got along with the way they had it kind of set up more. Black Ops 6 is kind of tricky.
Yeah, a little bit. I think I remember A mentioning that he was in a few lobbies with you. You guys used to play all the time. Maybe you didn't realize, but you were playing in lobbies, and he was like, "Gotta ask this question." So there we go.
Yeah, I remember like playing, but I'm not too sure. I never really take too much notice when I play with people. So I'm just focusing on just like killing everyone.
Yeah, that's fair. And in terms of like not just buying games and getting into them, but presenting yourself in games, going on that track, I'm sure a lot of people would like to know a little bit about this, and people can probably figure it out for themselves, but it's good to always ask, where does the name Steve Big Guns come from? I've heard that you like the gym, of course, and you have a routine, so could that be why?
Yeah, it's like I think when I made like PlayStation Network account, it's like, I gotta make a name. I was like trying stuff randomly. It's like nothing works. Everything's taken. So because I was like before then I think I was like used to go to like the gym a lot. Well, I think the initial thing, like when I actually started making LP, is when I actually injured myself. But that's why I got into like making levels like so much, because I was like injured. But yeah, I just kind of thought, go to a gym, like it seems to kind of fit, and it's like not taken. So I just kind of use that PSN and kind of use it. It's kind of like, I made my email the same as well. Everyone's like, every time I give my email, it's just like Steve Big Guns. It's like, that's just, everything else was taken. So I just use the same one. It's not taken again. So I just use it again.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. And if you think about it, right, there are actually technologies out there now that allow you, you know how back in the day, and you still have like name suggestion algorithms, but there are newer ones that kind of use AI to do that for you. And going on that track, I wanted to ask you a bit of an interesting question. What new game technology or trends like VR or AI do you think will be huge in the future? How do you see these affecting games, and do you have any concerns for these technologies?
Yeah, I'm not too sure on like VR and stuff. Like VR, I guess like I don't really have much of interest in VR because it's like that's like at one point like it seemed like really kind of interesting until you tried it. I think as soon as you try it, like you either like it or you kind of think, oh, yeah, it's kind of okay, and then you kind of move on. Where I found there's like this one point where everyone was just like, when they didn't have it, it's like something they want. Like it's, oh, it looks amazing, I want to try it. And a lot of people tried it and then they don't want to try it again. So I'm not too sure on and how you can evolve it. It's like I've been to one of the, one of those rooms where you have like VR headsets on, and it's like rather than just being like static in a room or in your own room, it's like you're in a kind of space that's large enough to allow multiple people in it, but it's still kind of a bit janky. Like you have to keep your spacing, and they try to do things like elevations, and they give warnings about being 6 when you're moving up. It's just kind of scrolling the screen, and so yeah, I'm not too sure on how much you can get out of that. Like even the visuals obviously on. I guess they can improve the visuals, but that doesn't really add too much. Like it's the gameplay you get out of it, and it's like it's kind of fun. But I found like just the old laser game where you actually shot stuff in person, because you could run around properly and not worry about people as much, and you could tell where you're actually shooting. But yes, and I think AI like has like loads of uses. Like I guess it's going to be exploited in terrible ways. Like people use it for like art and stuff, and it looks kind of obvious that it's bad, but obviously it's going to improve. But I guess the main benefit of AI is being able to take like the tedious part away from making games, like the frustrating bits of when you get stuck and you can't figure out how to do something. Especially like when you're just making stuff work. I know a lot of people, like even in LBP and like dreams and stuff, they're always I'm not too sure on how the logic works. So I can't make this thing I want to make. Where if you can just get AI to do that stuff, even like visual, some people are bad at art, but they want an asset and they spend ages just making this asset, and that's like time you could be spent towards doing something you want. It's just the easier it is to do all this kind of simple stuff of just making stuff work and getting art assets how you want them. Just a lot of people are just like, got an art asset, that's kind of roughly what I want. Modify this part, and you end up with like the same result as if you made it anyway. It's just you take out the kind of tedious part of having to make it. And yeah, it's just creating like a workflow that's just faster. You can end up spending all your effort on ideas and what's actually fun. But I think like if you get AI to come up with ideas, maybe it's like fun to like almost like brainstorm some stuff. I find like when you put stuff into AI, it comes up with what the most generic ideas that it kind of pushes you more to come up with like more unique ideas. But yeah, I think using it as a kind of a tool and not exploiting it too much and kind of relying on it, you can kind of come up with like one person can make a game pretty much without having to have an entire studio. So it allows more ambitious projects, and where a lot of ideas the scope's too high. You need like too many people to do all the assets, or like the complexity of just making this thing work. Like you need like programmers to help you, and it's just it was just kind of like LBP came along and allowed people to get into games design, where just before that, trying to learn an entire engine, how to do modeling, like everything. If you want to make a game by yourself, it's like too much work. You don't realize you can actually do this creative aspect of it, because the process of like learning everything is going to take so much time. And by the time you get, you just hate doing it. You find it tedious, and then you'll quit before you even found out you can do the thing. Whereas I found like the easier it is if it's kind of fun to actually make stuff, then you can kind of create your own visions, and you actually realize it's actually fun to bring like my ideas that I have into kind of a playable form so others can kind of enjoy them. And you can, I don't really, most of the time when I make a game, I just make it for myself really. It's like, I want to make a game, I want to play. And I think if you got a taste that is similar to like a lot of other people's, they want that same thing too. And I find like a lot of indie developers they're less afraid to do that. They'll make a game they want. And big studios, they kind of play it safe. They make a game that they think people want to play. taking surveys and what's popular at the time, where the indie studios end up leading. It's like, Battle Royale wasn't made by this. That was kind of taken on by the AAA studios, and a lot of these kind of indie games are actually influencing, especially you see little indie games like Vampire Survivors made by one person, Minecraft, things like that. Now they're worth more than the games that these large studios are making, and people are trying to copy them now. The larger studios are trying to copy them, but they kind of feel a bit soulless, rather than the idea of making these games that you want to see that don't exist currently. That's kind of what's interesting about it, and that's what AI, I think, will allow people to do. It takes a different mindset, so anyone can make an idea out. And that's kind of the whole reason, I guess, why LBP kind of was created, is to allow anyone to make games. And same reason Dreams was kind of made, is to make it accessible to anyone, so people I don't know they're good at making art, audio, games and things like that, or just, combining more into different things, or just anything really. It just allows creative people, or people that don't even know they're creative, to just discover that.
Yeah. And in terms of games that are similar in realm to, for example, LittleBigPlanet, Sackboy Big Adventure, Dreams, I want to ask you it's a very simple question, but it might be a bit difficult for you to answer, because these two games, people have very opinionated views on. Astro Bot or Sackboy? Which one?
What do you mean, the games?
Yes. Which one do you prefer?
I think Astro Bot's, if you compare Sackboy Adventure to Astro Bot's better as a gameplay experience. The controls are obviously better, and the kind of polish and the animations, and I find the levels design being full 3D is nicer as well. It allows the aspects of exploration, especially since it's built into the core game loop of finding the bots and stuff. So it's kind of, but I find the idea of the original LBPs, when they're actually physics based, is kind of more unique. Astro Bot is just, especially the new one, it's just Mario ideas reskinned with kind of making use, linking it to PlayStation brand with the controller and things like that. But it's really well done. It's done to the same standard as a Nintendo game would be, with polish. Everything's just polished completely, as much as possible. And so they just must have spent a lot of time on just the polished face. Not get it. Games come out broken, missing things. This is just incredibly polished, but. I think the initial LBP kind of, I think it's what it brought to it is kind of more unique, especially linking it to the crate based stuff, but just to kind of game felt at the time when it was released, it felt like it was introducing something more. So kind of I think I prefer to play an Astro Bot game for the gameplay experience, but it'd be nice to see if you did see a new LBP game, I'd almost like to feel like it had that kind of feeling, but as polished as Astro Bot. Combining the two, but it's kind of hard. It's I think definitely Astro Bot for gameplay and the game itself, but LBP for kind of what it is in terms of what it introduced.
Yeah, and so. Going on that route, we've seen many great games released over the, past few decades, and gaming continues to evolve, but one of the central key themes with gaming is that games have to be run on different types of hardware, of course, right? Consoles. And so, there have been great consoles and there have been shitty consoles. So I want to know what subjectively is, in your opinion, your favorite console to both develop games on and to play games on? You might have one of each, one console for developing, one for playing, or it might be the same one.
Yeah, it's I think I've used for developing PS3 to 5 although the game was using like 5, but we're still working on a game that's kind of on PS4 anyway. But obviously the developing I found, I think it's just like, probably, I was thinking, probably, actually I found it probably better on the actual PS4 dev kit. I think it's mostly because I had an idea of the frame rate you're working with. I found that because you have to optimize the game to run on frame rate. It's like PS5, and I don't think there's a way in the debug to simulate what the frame rate would be to know, how it would actually feel playing on the PS4. Where I think on the PS4 Pro version that I kind of use, you had the option to turn it on and like simulate the same frame rate that other people, players would actually see, and you could still turn on the pro mode, which allowed you, when you're developing it, to be like a nicer frame rate. So you have the kind of option for both. Where if they had the PS5 option on that, I think the PS5 would also be better, because then you could simulate that. But would never, well, not that I'm aware of, there was never an option to kind of do that. And I think like PS3, like that was kind of, you had to just run at a worse frame rate generally than people would expect, because I think the game would run in with always debug stuff on. So to actually get an idea of the frame rate, the final frame rate, you'd have to like kind of make a build and then play that, and that's kind of what you're actually editing it. It's usually slightly worse. So when you're making like LBP3 and stuff, the game was running worse, and you never get an idea of the actual frame rate until you kind of made a build and got the final result. And usually that's like, at the moment I'm just like playing on obviously PS5. That's like the latest one. It just runs all the old stuff. Well, I don't think it runs like obviously PS3 discs anymore. But generally it's like, don't really go back to playing old games anyway on those. So the PS5 is generally the best, except there's obviously the PS5 Pro, but I haven't bothered to get one. It's like the cost of, I don't know if you could trade it in or something, but the cost of upgrading from the PS5 to PS5 Pro for like a few frames a second just wasn't worth it. And I don't think you need a disc drive anymore, but it's just like, I kind of have some games on disc, but I don't really care about them too much. It's just the cost of it, and I just put an SSD into this one. There's no reason to upgrade.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I remember seeing the PS5 versus PS5 Pro thing, and I was like, this is ridiculous. Your average consumer isn't going to be looking, for slight pixel differences, between black and then slightly lighter black. And they're not going to be looking for, a sharpness level from 15% up to 17%. Like, it's not noticeable. So it threw me for a loop. I'm like, yeah, these guys are just almost scamming people with their price.
I think if you already have, like, most games I play run at 60 anyway. Resolution, I didn't really notice a massive difference. And when you're playing it, like the resolution of like motion on the screen, it's like I got like an LCD, it like smears anyway slightly. So and the distance I sit, you just don't notice any change in like resolution doesn't matter too much. And like, better lighting and things, and ray tracing doesn't really matter. I find it normally looks nicer without it. It's like less bugs and glitches on the screen. I don't really have any. If I'm going to upgrade, I'm just going to upgrade. I'll either spend the money like on an Xbox or something, or a new, PS6 or whatever, just something different rather than the same console again with slightly unnoticeable visuals, because you only notice them when they're side by side. If you went and just played a PS5 and then a PS5 Pro separately on a screen at a normal viewing distance, and you swapped one out without telling someone, I don't think people would know.
Yeah, no, I don't think they would. And so have you always kind of been a PC guy, or has it been more console oriented for you?
Certainly more console. I found that I did buy like gaming PCs before, and I find consoles, because when you make a game on a console, like you have fixed hardware and you have to optimize it to run. The games can always run at whatever, if it's like locked at 60, it's never going to go below 60. And if it's like 30, because it's like, you can't release the game unless it does that. You used to get like some janky games in the early days of PS3 where it like, went down to like terrible frame rates, but it's pretty stable now. And that's kind of when people choose a frame rate, they stick to it, where PCs are just all over the place, especially if the older the PC gets, the slower it seems to get, and you get bugs and whatever frame rate you choose. A lot of people like, you want to turn the settings up, but then you find like the frame rate's like, it can be it's like fine, it's like 90 frames a second, then it drops down to like 30 in bits, and it's if you don't want that, then you have to turn the settings down, and you can learn to tweak all the settings, and it just seems like I just want like a consistent kind of play rather than it kind of being possible to fluctuate and not knowing like how to kind of calibrate your hardware to the game correctly to kind of avoid those situations. And especially if you like use your PC for more than one thing, if you bring up a bunch of tabs or something, you watch your movies on it, because that's just going to draw performance out as well. So for many consoles, it's just more convenient. And I kind of find I end up using my computer for stuff anyway, like work and stuff at the same time. So I kind of have computers on and kind of console separate. I switch HDMIs and less hassle that way. I have like a Xbox, what's it called? Xbox Game Pass for PC, but I never end up using it, even though I've got some games I want to play. I just find like using a PC kind of a hassle. It's like there's something about it where I just prefer a console. It just seems to be quicker, and it's all in one place and not like too. I don't know. There's something like distracting about using a PC. Where you suddenly get pop-ups and things. I've been playing a game and suddenly pop-ups come on screen, and it's like, don't get that in a console.
Right. All those background processes. Yeah.
Suddenly the computer wants to shut down.
Right. It's like, no, go away. Because me and my friend Greg play Minecraft often, Minecraft Java, and we've had times where his piece, he has a RTX 2070, right, and I have a 2080 Super. Not that different, but when we look at his giant apartment tower that he built in the game, kind of cool, he experiences more slowdowns than I do. And I'm like, well, you have all this extra stuff running in the background, whereas if you were playing on a console, like you said, it would just be much quicker because you don't have all that junk, and so you need to manually close X, Y, Z and blah blah. It's also just I think how far you push the game in terms of its limits, because some people like to play with massive shaders that draw tons of power from the GPU, and if you like doing that, it's like, well, you're gonna need the more expensive software. And when compared to a console, it's like most games have that, like you said, consistency, where they're able to draw max power if they need to, or at least close to it, and then anywhere in between from the minimum without much issue. Whereas PC, it's like, yeah, the frame rate goes crazy, just pointing your camera up. It's like, why is it now 17 instead of 62 or whatever? It's one of those interesting game optimization things, because I remember we had to do that for one of the Elden Ring mods that I worked on. We had a problem with nav mesh, where AI and NPCs, it was causing it to lag out in areas, and it's because of occlusion zones. We're having trouble figuring that out. It's like, oh, we just need less draw groups, draw less power. And it's like, oh, that fixed it, So it's pretty interesting.
I guess on PC, like you can't. I guess you can, but on consoles there may be something related to the hardware that is like a bespoke bit of the game that's causing performance issues. That you can just modify it for the console itself, rather than where if you're on PC, it's kind of more brute force, where it gets less optimizations and things. So generally, what people complain about it more. Yeah,
right.
Kind of it's going to be reliable, so
Uh-huh.
a game and suddenly it's like pushing the hardware to the limit, and you realize you can't actually play it I've done that before. I bought a game. It's like around 50 frames a second and drops down a bit, but it's like stutters a bit and it just doesn't feel nice to play. So I should have just got on.
Yeah. And okay, so going on, I think we've talked quite a bit about that. Going on a bit of a different tangent, completely different tangent. This is more of a again, a personal question for me, and it does go back to going to the gym. What is your gym routine? Can you give a little bit of insight into that?
Yeah, it's like, I think at the moment I'm not doing anything. I think I was mentioned earlier, like I got like chronic tendon issues in like the scapula,
right,
trapezius. So I kind of stopped training. I think it's like about 2019. Before then, I was just doing like more kind of calisthenics, like work, like the kind of push-ups, or I was doing like pull downs and things like that. But
right.
I think before, I used to, like, when I was actually properly training, like I used to pretty much, I think I was saying some of the best sessions like 3 times a week, but then I'd spend, I don't know, like 3 hours sometimes. I would train like chest and back at the same time and like alternate. And it'd take like 3 hours before I like finish. I think that's probably why I messed my tendons up. I like train like arms and shoulders for like 3 hours and do like 60 sets for like biceps and like be curling like 60-kilogram dumbbells in each arm. That's probably why like all my tendons are messed up. Like doing like heavy weights for like an incredibly high amount of sets at the same time and just for a long duration. And I kind of find like infrequent training, like just doing that like 3 times a week and just do shoulders. I used to do like those kind of body parts, like right at the start, like, all the upper body like within 2 days, and then just spend the rest of the day or the rest of the week kind of recovering, which I found like it used to give you like, I kind of found that actually gave me a lot of energy as well. Like if you train, even though it sounds like exhausting, like spending that amount of time, like I come home and like just be like energized and like not being able to sleep until like 4 a.m. That's why I used to like make stuff. It's like it kind of gets your brain going so you can actually focus on things. Where it's like, at the moment I'm not training at all, so it's kind of, you feel like consistent and you never get that kind of spike of energy that allows you to kind of, almost like enhances creativity when you kind of, you feel like you're kind of energized and you want to do something, so you kind of, you filter it down by like making something, and you kind of find that that's kind of a good way to relax. And it's usually just destroying myself. Spend the rest of the week recovering.
Yeah. Well, I'd imagine, putting on that much stress. I mean, 3 hours, 3 days a week, right? I mean, that's bound to put some stress on after a while. I mean, I can't say I would ever get to that level. I mean, all I've ever done at most is like maybe curls with 12-kilo dumbbells in either hand, and it's like
pretty what I should have done.
not that strong, but I'm getting there. It'll happen one day, maybe become a bodybuilder. But about that, when you were doing your gym routine, did you inadvertently sort of, in doing that, become sort of a like pseudo bodybuilder or bodybuilder, or was that not really your goal? Did you not go that direction?
Yeah, I think initially, like, I started off like when I was in college, like it's kind of, I had a gym, so I kind of always been kind of like really strong and generally quite muscular anyway, so I just go to a gym to, I treated it a similar way as like making games and stuff. It's like, I just try to beat myself every time, so I try to make something cooler. And it's like, how big can I get? And it's like, I think I started when I was like 17, and it's like I put on, I think I started off like about, I put on about 80 pounds of muscle but I started off in like when university or college started, I guess it's like, is it like September or something? I can't remember when it starts, but by the end of the year, I put on like about 80 pounds, and I think my arms were measuring about 20 inches or something like that.
Oh, wow.
I went like huge, and then I think it's like most of the muscle I put on was actually the first 3 months. They say it like, bodybuilding takes like 20 years, and it's like took me like three months to put on like most of the muscle I put on. And it's like then it kind of like goes. I think the next like year I put on like a bunch of muscle, and then it's just like I ended up starting getting issues, getting injured and stuff, and I entered like a couple bodybuilding competitions, which pretty good. I didn't really know what I was doing. Like I didn't really diet that much for it, or like learn how to pose. And a lot of stuff, like I guess like today, like there's loads of YouTube stuff like trying to guide you, and like for some reason they say like people can't get 20-inch arms naturally. I think I had like at my most like around 20, 21, 22 inches, and that's pretty lean. So it's like as long as you like, I used to force feed myself all the time. I entered a couple competitions, but generally like I found my arms are like bigger than everything else. So it's
Right.
It's like, and I found that when you diet, because everyone else is like taking steroids and stuff, they maintain your muscle. I found like the more you diet and you want to go into a competition, like you get to a point where you get a certain like level of lean, and then you start burning muscle. And you burn just as much muscle as fat. So it's like it's almost like pointless dieting at that point. And I start getting like lightheaded and stuff. So it's like this isn't fun. And I found like when you get to like 8 or 10% body fat, it's kind of okay. When you try to get below that, you just start burning all your muscle away, and then it becomes kind of pointless. And I started finding that it's just easier to kind of don't really want to do any competitions or anything, because you're not really competing against comparable kind of people in comparable situations. They're all like taking steroids and stuff, and it's like you can't get that lean and maintain mass. And generally, it's like hard to build up certain things. Like I found like arms really easy to build. Like some areas like slightly harder. Like I never found my chest was like as large as like my arms. Like I could curl as much as like a bench press almost. It's like,
right.
I think it's like when I see like I'll be pressing like 50 kilogram dumbbells. I'll pick them up and go, I can actually curl dumbbells that are 10 kilos heavier than this, and it's like, but it's quite hard. Like some areas I find, I guess you just have natural kind of tendencies to be like stronger at, and like, some people have massive calves and stuff, and naturally it's kind of hard to build the rest up to be like in symmetry with it if you're. So it's kind of just do it for fun until I destroy my body.
Right. No, that's fair. And I think that was some good insight for anyone watching who's into kind of the whole, fitness thing. I need to get back into it myself. I need to get back into shape. But kind of wrapping up here a little bit, and I think this is probably the most exciting part of the interview, depending on how you want to go about it. But is there anything else you kind of want to touch on for the audience? Anything you want to get out there that maybe is specifically something obscure, something people may not know about you through the time you've been in the LittleBigPlanet community, things you've worked on, experiences you've had, just really anything that would grab people's attention a little bit?
That's a tricky one. On the spot. I'm not too sure. Kind of covered stuff I kind of worked on. I guess it's like currently like prototyping stuff myself, like seeing if I can actually come up with like a game idea myself, which is, I guess it's like what I said previously, like it's more fun to work on stuff yourself. So it's like trying to like get the ideas down, and I started like making kind of something similar to LBP, which is like kind of 2D physics based thing, but trying to make it, I guess the idea was like taking ideas of kind of ragdoll games like Fall Guys and stuff where you get knocked down, but kind of applying that to like a 2D game and seeing how far you can go in that. And that's kind of maybe people may find that interesting, but I kind of started off like publishing videos like on what's it, my YouTube channel, which is just a random bunch of stuff I make, which kind of has some of the videos on it. But for some reason, I don't know. Have you ever heard of like the Roblox game, like Pressure? I think it is.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, it's like the main character is like, it looks like the creature from that. Or one of the character creatures. I mean, like making these kind of kaiju things. I'm going to make like different types, like land ones and stuff. But I made like a sea one, which is a bit like the shark survival character almost. Like it just tries to eat you at the moment. I've been making like kind of enemy type creatures. And yeah, it's kind of, everyone's just seems to be like thinking it's like a Pressure fan game. But yeah, it's like, I don't know if anyone finds that kind of interesting, but yeah, I've been trying to like see what you can do to kind of imagine like all the things I wanted to see like in the kind of LBP type games that never were kind of possible, and just trying to get like ragdolling in where you can get knocked around, similar to like games like Helldivers and things like that. So yeah, it's kind of trying to recreate some of that fun into it in a prototype that I can be. May just recreate it in another engine, but I was making it in Dreams at the moment. It's just 100 times faster than any other ones. And when you know the tool, it's just easier. It takes the frustrating bit about what I said, like, earlier. It's like when you're trying to make something, you just want to be focusing on what's creative about it and getting your ideas down rather than fighting tools about, how you achieve something.
Right. And I think something people might also want to know is, and this kind of deals with relationships a little bit at the studio, or studios, Media Molecule and Sumo. Do you have any, like, what were some of your most memorable moments, kind of not only building levels and stuff, but actually working with people at the studio? Like, were there any moments where you had kind of like get-togethers where you did playthroughs of levels, anything similar to that?
Yeah, I think it's like a lot of people, like especially like Sumo, like this had a lot of like, I guess we had like these game jams which were pretty fun, like bringing everyone together, and that was pretty fun. And we actually had people from like the community and stuff come down, and we had multiple game jams with each other as well, like actually meeting up. Like a lot of people that were actually hired were from like the community initially, like a lot of people from Tarsier as well. I think, probably forgot, like the first job interview I think was actually for Tarsier on like the Vita version, and then I think Sumo offered at the same time, so then I think Sumo replied to a lot of us first, and we ended up going to Sumo instead of Tarsier. And then there are other people like at the Gaming Jam that actually went to Tarsier studio. So yeah, we kind of always had kind of game jams with people in the studio, and we also had one Media Molecule itself that was like the Dreams equivalent of like the Game Jam, but we've only ever had like one of those where it's like just everyone like from the community again came down and kind of. I don't think that was a game jam. I think that was actually a meetup where it's like meeting everyone like from the community. So, and that's like, it's kind of similar before it's like, even though there's like a Dreams community, it's like a lot of people were like from LBP as well. And I've got like people I've actually seen on like, friends on Facebook and stuff that I kind of kept in contact with that are there. So it's like nice to see people like in real life and actually see them. And yeah, I've still got like, friends that played in LBP that I kind of, see in real life quite often, kind of actually, friends. And it's kind of nice that you kind of meet people that are, part of just a game, and actually brings them together to kind of, kind of connect and then actually meet up in real life and see each other. It's like something I don't think you would see in like any other game. Or, well, I probably would, but it's like easy to kind of, you kind of spend so much time like doing that. And yes, so every single day, like just going out and seeing, like working with people that you actually seen in the community initially and all the levels they made, and then you're kind of working with them. It's like kind of experience I don't think you get like working at a normal studio. Like you see people come in and you never, you're not aware of them beforehand. You kind of just come and work, whereas this time it's like you kind of met them before, and it's like you already kind of feel that you kind of know a lot of people. Kind of different, which is kind of nice. You didn't really get that, and it's kind of why I don't know. every time, like even if you go, you want to work at another studio or something, it's like you never get that kind of feeling. You always feel like, oh, you're starting again, where it's like it's kind of nice that you kind of, it felt like, going from like making stuff in the community to working, it felt like a kind of continuation rather than this kind of hard stop and starting and not knowing anyone.
Yeah, that's good. And so let's see here. I've got a couple more questions and then we'll wrap up here. What and this might be a bit of a vague question, but what are your plans for the near future? Just moving forward, working with Media Molecule and anything after that. Like what's kind of your grand plan moving forward?
Yeah. I think it's. I think what I mentioned a second ago is like I may just like prototype any games I want in my spare time, just to just see what the ideas are like. I'm just going to spend most of my time getting the ideas down. I think it's like obviously working at a studio and continuing on, but you never. I guess a lot of people kind of at the studio as well. They kind of always. It's always fun to have your own stuff just to kind of keep sane. If you're just working on like certain projects, like you don't want to put too much into yourself in a project because you're not really in control over how it's going to end up. And it can be like, if you want it, you have certain ideas or something, or it could have been a certain way, but it doesn't. Something happens, or like the game has to be out. It's like always nice to have something you're kind of working on yourself. And I find it's just trying to do some kind of design myself and figure out like just pure gameplay design, just more ideas rather than anything, to get some ideas I had down, see if they're actually fun, and kind of have something like a kind of a list of like, kind of resource of ideas that I can just draw from that I already know have been prototyped and work. And because this, not sure, like even after MM, like I don't know if I would want, like, what I want to work at another studio. I don't know. Like the only reason I want to work at another studio is like for money. But if you had like a project yourself, like something, a lot of studios end up getting shut down at Sony, so it's always good to have a plan of what would happen rather than just like coasting and kind of hoping that something happens. Always kind of, I guess, like have your own path kind of set out, that if something happens you can do that, and it's going to be something you'd want to do rather than possibly go into like a different job that you may not like. Or it's hard to know when you work at other studios, if you'd actually even like it. So if you can actually work on something yourself that you're kind of making, you're into it, it's like fun every day, because you're kind of, well, unless you're doing tedious aspects, but you're making something you want to. Usually I end up making stuff that doesn't exist, so it's always fun because you're making something you want to play yourself, and it's always interesting to see how others react to it as well. If you want to share what you find fun, like if you make something fun that's kind of cool that doesn't exist, you kind of share it with others. That's kind of why I kind of make games. So that's kind of what I want to kind of focus on, like in the kind of future. Just or else it'll never end up happening if you don't have a plan for it.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sort of following a similar track. I've been in, so I'm a developer, I'm a programmer. I've been in the industry for almost 6 years now, and I'm kind of on that same kind of mindset where it's like, I kind of want a definitive plan of where to go to next in terms of developing software for games, because that's where my niche is, and being able to kind of create tooling that innovates gaming further, whether it's audio, visuals, just general gameplay mechanics, lots of exciting stuff. And I think in coming years, we're just going to see a lot of revelations with that. And it's going to be super cool to see what people come up with as AI continues becoming bigger. As much as some artists may hate it, it's going to keep growing. It's going to keep getting bigger, and I think it'll get adopted at a certain point within AAA games. Maybe not entirely, but in sort of small glimpses. Maybe for things like voice lines. I remember I was talking to Kenneth about gibberish in Little Big Planet with the king and the queen, for example, and how, if we had the tooling that we have now back then, could have made the gibberish with, an AI on the spot, instead of having people learn from the big old gibberish Bible, that Kenneth made. Still cool. Love his gibberish. It's amazing. But just things like that, seeing into the future and where it can go is it's a wonderful thing. It's a wonderful thing. And games, I think, are going to be made better for it. I don't think like people will continue using AI for bad purposes, but other people will also continue using it for good. And I hope that good seeps into games, where we just see a little bit more kind of that positive side, how it can make people happy, make experiences more immersive. So anyway, so last question here, Mr. Belcher. Very simple question, but of course, everyone must come to terms with it. Which is better, Coke or Pepsi?
Water. Yeah, I don't think I've had like Coke or Pepsi in the past, like since I was like maybe like 16 or something. I think as soon as I started like training, like I just stopped drinking anything like fizzy or like pretty much water or like almond milk maybe. That's about it. But yeah, I haven't really had any like I had one like yeah.
No tea or anything like that?
No, it's like Coke or Pepsi. It's like I don't even know what it tastes like anymore. It's fizzy, sugary stuff. I wouldn't know the difference if it tasted one or another.
I think Kenneth mentioned that Pepsi tastes a bit more manufactured than Coke does. Like it just has a more metallic taste or something like that, so he prefers Coke. I would say I prefer Coke as well to Pepsi, but yeah, if it's been years, makes sense,
I think they both taste natural kind of liquid that is tasting like that. It's kind of fizzy and sugary. It's kind of synthetic stuff. It's like...
Yeah. Well, any other final thoughts before we head out here to the outro?
I think that's it. Yeah, it's just great kind of speaking with you and going through like everything, kind of remembering stuff. I guess it's like struggling to remember. Everything's been so long ago, like working at Sumo and stuff. I think it's like, what was it? I think I left like 10 years ago. It's I had my 10-year anniversary at MM in December, so it's like 10 years. It's leaving, so it's like it's good to kind of go back and kind of remember stuff. Kind of hopefully you remember it correctly.
Yeah, I think so. I think you've hit the nail on the head for in a lot of different areas. I think you've touched on stuff that people have really wanted to know about for sure, and that's something really valuable. And you never know, you may look 10 years from now and be like, I remember reminiscing about that. And then you'll reminisce about it again, and hopefully still remember all the good times, because Little Big Planet has been it's been a source of inspiration for me. I've been playing it since I was 6 years old, and it's been inspiration for millions of people, and your levels have impacted millions of people as well. And so be proud of that, because they are wonderful. And so let's see here. I'm going to go ahead and do the outro, and then I want to see if you have a couple of minutes. I want to see if I can show you something pretty cool that you might like, and then we'll head out here. All right, I'm going to do the outro, and then I'll cut the clip in Streamlabs, and I'll show you this little thing. All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that was Steven Belcher, or Steve Big Guns. It was a delight having you here with us to talk about your experiences on the game, and I'm sure many people have enjoyed hearing about all the the good times, and of course the times related to, maybe bug fixing levels and getting into the dirt of things, the crux of things. And yeah, it's been great diving into the big picture of your history working on the game, and also being a player of the game as well. So guys, make sure to go ahead and like and subscribe to the channel and keep updated. We'll be posting more LittleBigPlanet interviews and content in the coming weeks. And LittleBigPlanet is gonna be alive for the next few years, I think. So it'll be a good time. All right, peace.